Salam, the nation of Lemba Beta Esrael, in all the four corners of the earth that the Kike Israel may be found. Salam to all our honorable royal dignitaries in Sinai, South Africa, the Promised Land, for all Yemeni Israelite people. Salam to all the princes and princesses of this kingdom, and salam to members of the Royal Executive Council of this kingdom, in the Royal Supreme Courts of this kingdom in Sandton, South Africa, Sinai. That is the sitting of the royal courts of this honorable kingdom of Lemba Beta Israel. I should like to distinguish the high priest of this kingdom, Abune Zion. I would like to distinguish members of the royal executive, starting with Her Majesty the Queen Mother, Queen Bukeka. I should also want to distinguish our majestic reign queen, Mujachi, of the Malema house of Israel, of Lemba Beta Israel, who is also in our midst. I should like to distinguish all the children of Lemba Beta Israel in this honorable kingdom. I am King Binyam, Selamun of Lemba Beta Israel, and I'm speaking from my royal course in Santiago de Chile in South America. And I should like to speak to you today, my people and all nations, about something that is so important. In this kingdom, and that is about our sacred objects and our great move as we prepare for the great royal entourage that will have to happen in Sinai and South Africa when the royal court shall move from Santiago, Chile to South Africa, the Promised Land in Sinai, to build the city of Sena 2 and Sena 4, I beg your pardon, and Pusela city number 2, named after Pusela 1 in Yemen and the Southern Arabian Peninsula, and Sena 4 after Sena 1 in Yemen. These are the cities that have to be built in the New Jerusalem, which is South Africa, which we call in Ge'ez, the language of Beta Israel from Yemen, that this is Sinai. Now I am glad that I have the opportunity today to speak to you about these sacred objects that are keeping the kingdom up, to keep them alive. Remember that I have associated the progress and the power of this kingdom with the power of the God that we serve in this kingdom. And then I have explained the qualities of this God in the other videos, that this God is not a God of a belief system, but He's a God of great manifestation. He's a God that does great things that you can see. It's a God that speaks with a voice that you can hear. So you do not have to build a belief system in order to understand the actions and the activities of this God and how this God functions and how he takes care of his own and how he protects his own people. So therefore, in this fashion, my people, I should like to speak about the sacred objects that has kept us alive to this day and how this is associated with our God. I know that many of you could have probably heard that the Lemba people, my people that I'm representing today, used to have as keepers of the Ark of the Covenant. As you know, the story of the Ark of the Covenant from the so-called, Hebrew Bible or something, that talks about the Ark of the Covenant that we had in our midst, which was the representation of the seating of the Most High God in our midst, in the tent or the camp of meeting. So I should like to speak about the Ark and also talk about in relation to what we call in Lemba Ngoma Lungundu. Now, this session shall address the whereabouts of the Ngoma Lungundu. And this is a serious concern because we no longer possess the Ngoma Lungundu, which was the drum of music that gave us the power in many ways to do great things within the kingdom, and that symbolized the presence of our God in our midst through a drum. Name of the drum was Ngoma Lungundu. And this is, as interpreted according to, in English language, the translation of that is the drum that thunders. In other words, the drum that makes music and has vibrations. And so if it is a drum that makes music and vibrates a lot, it must be very interesting to listen to because the music comes out of it. And so we will talk about this drum that the Lemba had, which according to researchers has been identified with similarities to the Ark of the Covenant that was spoken about in the Hebrew Bible that Moses had and kept the commandments inside it. I will speak about that one the other day, but there are similarities according to research and schools of thought that the Ark of the Covenant, which was a box, a chest that Moses made, according to the Hebrew Bible story, and also according to Beta Israel in some way, that there was a drum like that which symbolized a covenant between the people of Israel and the Most High God. And now I should like to make it clear that there is something also called the Tabor. And this Tabor is actually in Gears, refers to the Ark of the Covenant as you know it from the Hebrew Bible. But there is yet also the Tabor making reference to a drum. So therefore you could see that they were interchangeable items here. There was a drum and there was a chest or a box that contained certain ornaments, that contained certain articles that were very important for the children of Israel. Sacred objects. It was a sacred box and kept the commandments that were written in Gears, as I told you before in the other videos, that the commandments were written in Gears according to our tradition and not so-called Hebrew, which we don't know what that is. Yes, the language that was used to write the commandments was Gears, the language of Hasaba, the language of Abyssinia, the language of Yemen, Sena, Yemen, which is the same people as the Puntites of Hasaba. So Moses, when he went, or Moses' people, when they went to Hasaba or to Abyssinia or to Ethiopia, if you like, were able to speak the same tongue since they were the same people anyway. Thank you. And so we will try to talk about the power behind this powerful force behind these people that made them so strong. Of course, there are secrets associated with the sacred objects of the Israelites. That's why the Hebrew Bible or any other account has not been able to go into details about what really the sacred objects were made of, what they contain, what they consist of. And so we will be able to tell some things, but we will not go into detail about the secrets of these sacred objects. They maintain a certain secrecy, and certain secrets that should not be revealed to the public. There are songs and poems and chants associated with sacred objects in Israel that we are not going to record on a CD. We are not going to get that recorded for public hearing. We are not going to make a record label from that and say, listen to this and get it from a store. No, doesn't work like that. We do not publish music that is associated with sacred objects and sacred rituals in Lemba Beta Esrael, or in Israel anyway. So we will only talk about the fact that these things are in existence, and that Lemba Israel needs to come to their senses and make use of what they have, and understand their heritage, and understand where they came from, and understand the power that is behind them. So therefore we can bring them back to restore their strength and renew their strength by understanding that the sacred objects are the source of power and mystery and magic and great works and great deeds and manifestations of the great God of this people. So then, I'm speaking about the Ngoma Lungundu, which is been compared to the chest or the Ark of the Covenant, as you have been told. As you know from the Hebrew Bible, that the Ark of the Covenant carried the Ten Commandments, and it was the seating of the Most High in the tabernacle. Now, we had a drum as well, which is obviously another object, because we could have several sacred objects for different purposes. But I'm not going to tell you what it consists of inside, because it has sacred objects inside that makes it function the way it does. So this Ngoma Lungundu drum, which I'm going to specifically speak about on this session, was carried by the Lemba everywhere they went. And in every place they settled, they always had the drum of Ngoma Lungundu. But if you say Ngoma in the Zulu language in South Africa, there is a nation called Zulu. Not South Africans. No, Zulu nation. I'm talking about nations here, not the Republic of South Africa. No. The nation of the Zulus is a nation. It has it's a kingdom of the Zulu. So in the language of that particular nation, the Ngoma means a song. That actually makes it clear that even though we call it a drum, we are actually speaking about music here. We're speaking about songs that come from this music, from this drum of music, right? So there's a lot of music here, and there is a song, which is a Ngoma. Now, there has been misconceptions about the whereabouts of the drum and what the drum was capable of doing. It was doing great things, the drum of the Lemba. You probably could have heard a lot more about certain nations somewhere else in the world that had special objects that had certain power. And those objects, or sacred objects, had certain power to do certain things. And those nations were proud of it. And they cherished those sacred objects. But you may also have heard that some of these sacred objects were taken away by colonialists, that some colonizers came out of some place in Europe and came to the so-called African continent and found some nations and kingdoms in there, and that revered their own strength and their own heritage and these colonizers captured the power that was behind those nations and those kingdoms. Those powerful nations had a source of power from their sacred objects. They could perform miracles with these objects. They could bring rain. They could heal the sick. They could do anything. They could hear the voice of God through the sacred objects. So they will not have no confusion, like the confusion that you find in religions where you have to manufacture something in your head to understand God. In order God to work for you, you have to believe and start imagining things that God can do for you without necessarily having those things done so that you can see, or having that voice coming out so you can hear. So in Lemba Beta Israel, we are based on two principles: to see and to hear. If we don't see it and we don't hear it, we can challenge it. Yes. Our God does not work miracles because we believe in him. He works miracles because he has power. The more we doubt, the more he demonstrates that he's very powerful. So he's not like a God of religion who is depending on you, that if you believe, then he will be in existence. If you do not believe, he doesn't exist. No, doesn't work like that. If you say, I don't believe that you have power, that's when he will show his power more than when you think you know he's going to do it. So religions have taught you that it's you who makes the power come into you because you have a little belief, imagination in your head, which brings God into existence. Doesn't work like that. You have to see and hear. If you were not there, or if you have a disability, then you will have to depend on witnesses. And these witnesses have to take a vow that before they tell you something they have witnessed, that they will not lie. For if they lie, they will die. This is the penalty. So therefore, our witnessing in Lemba Beta Israel is very reliable, because all our witnesses will fear to lie, because if they lie, they will die. This is the penalty. And so, the Ngoma drum was used in war. Just like you have read in the Hebrew Bible about the Ark of the Covenant being used in war, in battle, to make those who are carrying it to be successful in war, to win the war against their enemies. So was the same with the drum that we call here today Ngoma Lungundu, the drum of the Lemba and Israelite people from Yemen. Thank you. What was the drum doing for the Lemba? Great things. It was the voice of their God. Who is their God? Amalak Lakulu Manfas, Lakulu Sasega, the God of all spirit and all flesh. I explained in the last video that the one who is the owner of the flesh and the owner of the spirit is the God. The proprietor of all these two things I've just mentioned, the body and the flesh and the spirit. He owns it. He created it. So he is God. That's what makes an entity a God, because of ownership. Yes, thank you very much. And so the drum was given to the king to use it. The king would perform miracles with this drum. Ngoma Lungundu. Or in Gaze, Tabor. In Spanish, they also say tambor, talking about a drum. Because when the Moros, who are the Berbers actually, they're not called Moros. Moro is a Spanish word they were giving them as a nickname, because it means those who have a toasted skin. They're called Moro. It's not the name of a nation. Moro is a color. It means black or toasted. Yeah. Even the food that you eat, if you have toast green, from green and toasted to dark brown or whatever, is called Moro. Yes. Moro is not the name of a nation, it's the name of a color. It's actually a racist word to refer to people called black people. There's no such thing as black people. It doesn't exist. There's no nation called black. It doesn't exist. Or white. It doesn't exist. Yes. So after that, the drum was in the midst of the children of Lemba Israel to use it, and the king was holding the drum, and there were regulations of the use of the drum. The drum was used as a defense, as a weapon of defense, and also as the mouth and the word of their God. The same thing that the Ark of the Covenant, which was a chest or a box, was doing according to the Hebrew Bible. So in another session, we will now try to describe that if ever existed a chest or not, or it was only a drum. That's for another session, because I don't want to confuse you, because we're worried about what happened to the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba, which is an Israelite people from Yemen. The drum of Ngoma Lungundu was in Yemen with the Lemba. Where the lembas were, they took the drum with them, the Ngoma Lungundu. So I am saying this because I want to make it very clear that this is not an African drum. Yes, this is not a drum of the continent of Africa. This is a drum of the Lemba. The Lemba is not Africa. Africa is the name of a continent. We are not talking about the continent of Africa here. We are speaking about the Lemba nation. Not a tribe, a nation. So the Lemba nation had a drum. So I'm trying to blow to pieces this expression that I hear, this rhetoric that it was an African drum. Who is that? Africa. Who has a drum? I have never met a person called Africa having that drum that I'm speaking about today. I have never met him. So how can you keep saying African drum? I don't like that word, African drum. I don't like it. Yes. So the drum was the lembas, not Africa. Okay? We must get that straight before we go any further. Yes. And so now the drum was used by the king of the Lemba. There were different kings of the Lemba in the dynasty. King Hamisi, King Selamun of the Lemba, King Sadiki of the Lemba, King Bakari of the Lemba, King Hamisi. So we had different kings, and they were using the drum in Yemen, where they came from originally. Even when they moved to what you call Canaan or whatever, in the northern part of Arabia, they still carried their drum with them all the time. They migrated to Southern Africa, so-called Southern Africa, which I don't understand what that is. Yes, where we have Zimbabwe now, where we have South Africa now, where we have Botswana now. There are many nations in Botswana, and there are many nations in the so-called South Africa. And so the Lemba were one of them. And they carried their drum all the time. They left Yemen, they left Canaan with their drum. They left Israel with their drum. The drum was a self-defense weapon and was also the mouth of their God, who I say is the owner of the spirit and the flesh. That's what makes him a God. And now the drum was used by the king, and he would keep it in that way and make sure that it's used accordingly because it had regulations. For example, it doesn't have to touch the ground. It has to be suspended on poles, not to touch the ground. If it touches the ground, it's against the rules and it's not going to function very well. And the God, who is the giver of this drum, is not going to be happy with his drum touching the ground. This must be understood as a pure regulation that it should not touch the ground. If it touches the ground, there will be punishment for those who allowed it to touch the ground. So please do not let the drum touch the ground. It's very clear instruction that the Lemba persons must not let the drum of Ngoma Lungundu ever touch the ground. Important. At some point, the drum, by mistake or maybe by carelessness, touched the ground, and the people were punished for that, for letting it touch the ground. So please, let's understand their regulations here. And during war, the drum was used to defend the children of Israel. The king would use the drum, not other people. No one else will do. It was carried on poles and suspended on poles, just the same way as the other one, which was a box, was carried. Yes, according to the Hebrew Bible. Yes. And so we understand that it had a lot of power inside it. It was carried on pole by people that were chosen as priests. As you know that, the priests are in control. And so the drum was used. In battle, what will happen? The king will use the drum to defeat the enemy, the opponent, in a battle. So the drum is used that only one beat will bring about an effect, and the second beat will bring another effect. So the effects of the drum happen by beats. If he beats it once, something will happen to the enemy. If he beats it again, another effect will take place. So in this case, let's talk about the enemy advancing, trying to fight with Lemba Beta Esrael. According to the regulations and how the functions of the drum, if the king, when the enemy approaches and wants to fight and destroy Lemba Beta Esrael army, the king will strike the drum only once. Boo! And once he does that, the enemy will be paralyzed. All the people on the other side of the battle who are trying to attack Israel will be paralyzed, and they will lay slump on the ground like they are sleeping, paralyzed and helpless and motionless. This was the power of the drum. Just one drum beat would do that. Now, someone is asking me, you are talking legends? Are you talking of your beliefs? No, I'm not. Please, let's get it straight here. We are not asking for people to be believers here. This is not a church. Maybe in the churches you'll get this thing of saying, please believe me. No, we are not asking for the sympathy, So if you do not believe, it doesn't matter to me. If you still do not believe, you don't even have to. Is this a legend? No, it's not a legend. we are talking our history here. We had a drum that performed miracles. One drum beat, boom, will make the enemy get paralyzed immediately. Just like the same effect that you will find in a hospital when someone is given an anesthetic before an operation could be done. They will be in an anesthetic condition so that the operation could happen. They will have to lie silent there, motionless, in order to be operated. So the same thing happened here with the power of our drum. I'm not going to talk about what we put inside it to make it do that. I'm only talking about that the Lemba had and will have in my leadership the Ngoma Lungundu drum again. That's why I'm here. If there was no Ngoma, I will not be here talking to you. It would be a waste of time if we didn't have something called Ngoma Lungundu, because this is key to the Lemba Beta Esrael people. The power and the source of power in the communication with the voice of their God. So if the drum could not be found or never had existed among the Lemba, I will not be speaking to you now. It will be a waste of time. So the drum will do the things I just said. One beat makes them sleep, makes them paralyzed, helpless. So in other words, it guarantees victory for our army. In this case, we are winning just like that. We don't exchange blows. We don't exchange bullets. We don't have arrows turning up and down towards them, towards us. We don't have that exchange. We are just simply making them sleep on the ground. They will do nothing. Okay, so these people are just sleeping like in an operation. It's up to us whether we want to resuscitate them or we don't. Just like in a hospital. If they want to bring you back, they can bring you back. But if they don't want to bring you back, they don't bring you back. Like, for example, they're harvesting body organs from people. They put them in the state of operation of anesthetic, and they're sort of like brain dead a little bit. Yes. And then they take the organs from them. Because they've taken the organ, of course, they cannot survive. So they cannot bring them back. You know, like they're taking a heart, for example. Something that is really the central point of somebody's life. You know, the center of somebody, the pivot of somebody's life has been taken, so they cannot survive. Maybe they take something else, perhaps they may survive. There is no guarantee after the operation that someone will come back to life. That's why people have to sign for it, life or death. And so in the case of those who are harvesting body organs from our people like they're doing now, they will just let them die after the operation has been done. So in the same way here, we can decide whether we let them die or we bring them back and wake them from sleep, right? So if we want to let them die, so we will make sure that we let them sleep forever. Or we could finish them off with our tools that we have, like maybe a knife or a gun, just to finish them off so that it's not just the anesthetic, but it's real death, biological death of the soldiers from the enemy. Yes. And so, if we want to bring them back, we have to beat this drum the second time and say, okay, Guru, come back and talk to me. Do you see that I had defeated you first? I made you sleep, and now you are surrounded by the army of Lemba Beta Esrael. Do you see that you're defeated? Do you have any story to tell? Do you have anything that you can do for yourself or not? Look at the people surrounding you. Your enemies are surrounding you. Lemba Beta Esrael that you are trying to fight and kill is surrounded you. You are in our hands now. Oh, if you say that you have resuscitated me and now I'm trying to kill you again. Oh well, doodle, the drum, fall down. Because you wanted to kill us after we resuscitated you, we are no longer going to resuscitate you. You will die forever now. This anesthetic thing will never stop. And then we will finish you up. Yes. So these are the powers of the Ngoma Lungundu. Not only will the Ngoma Lungundu do these things, but it will also be a weapon that emits fire in other cases. So it has another style of function again to open fire. So somebody said, oh, this sounds like a nuclear bomb. Yeah, it will explode and make an explosion to attack the enemy. Because here we'll be in war. This is not abuse of mankind. We are at war with our enemies. We must win the war. So we have an explosion here that we use in self-defense. Yes. So this is what the Ngoma was doing. Then one day, this Ngoma was captured because of carelessness within our people. There was carelessness. They did not handle it properly. And then somehow it was captured as a way of punishing the Lemba for not handling it properly and allow the enemies to capture the drum. So when the enemy captured the drum, just like it was the case with the Bible story about how the Ark of the Covenant was in the hands of the wrong people, and then David and his men had to go get it back, and David was dancing and very happy that the drum was brought back, and so he was dancing and excited about that and dancing to music. Now you are going to understand that the chest that is described in the Hebrew Bible is not producing any music here for David to dance to. David was dancing to Ngoma Lungundu drum. He was dancing to the Tabor because the Tabor is a musical instrument. It was able to serve many purposes. Look, it made the enemy collapse. I mean, to be paralyzed and to lay motionless on the ground. 2, it was able to produce music for that which David could dance to the beat, to the music, to the songs. 3, it was able to explode as a weapon, causing an explosion like a bomb to kill the enemy. Look at this. Powerful thing. So, even in the Hebrew Bible, the dancing is not explained very well because we have our own scriptures that mention that David was dancing to the Ngoma, not to the box. Dancing to a musical instrument. Yes. And so, in this way, the Ngoma Lungundu at one time went into the hands of the wrong people because of some carelessness within the Lemba people. And at that time, the Lembas were in Zimbabwe. And they moved from Zimbabwe, from the Stone City. They moved to South Africa in what is now called Limpopo province, which used to be called the Northern Transvaal during the regime, the apartheid regime. Yes. And then they came from Zimbabwe, they came to South Africa with the drum, but then the Swazi people captured the drum because of the carelessness that I just spoken about. there was a little mistake that was done, and then the drum ended up in the wrong hands. So the person who was in control at that particular time, I'm speaking about between the 16th and the 17th century here, the 1600s up to the 1700s. Yes. And the person who was leading the Lemba at that particular time, even though we had several groups of Lemba coming from Zimbabwe into South Africa to occupy South Africa in the northern part of South Africa, still there was another group that was led by my grandfather Solomon, of the Solomon clan of the Lemba. So the drum, the last time that drum was seen in existence, was in the hands of my great-great-grandfather in the 1700s when he came into South Africa. The history that is still in a closed book, that we are going to bring the memoirs very soon about this. So it is his grandson speaking right now, the grandson of Solomon of the Lemba, who was holding the drum of the Lemba as a king of the Lemba and moved from Zimbabwe into South Africa. We have the history, we have the oral tradition. We have the family history as well, apart from the Lemba nation as a history, but we also have the family history in the Solomon history family of our grandfather holding the drum, using the drum of Ngoma Lungundu. Someone from our house, from our family. So I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So the Swazis captured the drum. Solomon pursued them. He pursued until he got there. But by the time he got there, it was too late. He had to hear two incidents and two effects. One, the complaint from the Swazi people that the drum was giving them bad luck. So they really wanted to get rid of it badly, because it was giving them bad luck, because in the first place, they're not supposed to take it and capture it because it was not theirs. And so therefore, it was not working for them. It gave them bad luck, as they say, we need to get rid of this drum. We have so much bad luck from this drum. Solomon, please come and take your thing. Yes, and then Solomon got there, but it was too late. They were complaining. It was giving us bad luck. But in the end, I think it's somewhere there, over there. Go over there and find it. And then when he got there, it had already destroyed itself. It had already destroyed itself. It's exploding. Like I told you, it has this part of it that explodes like a bomb. It emits fire, just like a nuclear bomb, just like any bomb. It just begins to do that. And then at this point, it decided to break itself up and be into pieces and was never restored, beyond repair. Solomon said, there's nothing I can do about it. There is no drum. It has disappeared. It has destroyed itself. I have no power to bring it back. I can't take little bits and pieces of it to put together. It's just beyond repair. I cannot repair it. So Solomon would only have another drum if Nwari, the god that I told you about, the word Nwari is it's a word of the Venda when they say God and the Tsonga. So in the Karanga and the Shona, when they say God, they say Nwari. So don't ever think that I'm talking about another god. No, I'm talking about the god that brought the Lembas out of Yemen into what we call Southern Africa, the so-called Southern Africa, which I don't know what Southern Africa means. They came to the land of the Vangona. They came to the land of Chibula. They came to the land of the other tribes and nations with their kings. Yes, the lands of sojourn. Now, the drum had destroyed itself, so it does not exist. So ever since then, in the hands of my father, in the eyes in front of my father, the witness of the Lemba. I told you that witnesses in here in Lemba Beta Israel culture are serious witnesses. They don't lie about it. So Solomon could tell what he has seen, and he passed it down the generation and said, my children, I tried to look for the drum to bring it back home, but it had been destroyed beyond repair. There's nothing I could do about it. Mwari, the God, has not given me another one. Yes. That's when the drum was last seen and was last talked about. From my family line, from the nation of Lemba, as they came to South Africa from Zimbabwe. Yes. Now there is a story coming out of Zimbabwe, told by people from Europe, missionaries of religions, coming to Zimbabwe to proselytize, to spread Christianity or Islam or anything, or Judaism or anything, which has nothing to do with Lemba. And they come to Zimbabwe and they are trying to win Zimbabweans to Christianity or to Judaism, whatever it is, which has nothing to do with the culture of the people of that land. Yes. And these are the people, these missionaries. There was a missionary called von Siekert. I think he was a Swedish missionary. He was in Zimbabwe proselytizing, which he shouldn't have been allowed to do anyway in the first place. The Zimbabweans do not need a foreign god in their land from Europe. They don't need that. They should not be interested. Yeah. So then the story says that there was this missionary, and then there was another researcher, an anthropologist called Tudor Parfitt from England, from the University of London, who actually discovered a piece of wood that was found in a cave in Zimbabwe that backdates to old times, and that is being theorized as the remains of the Ngoma Lungundu. Now look, people are talking about the Ngoma Lungundu, and they come from Europe, and they say that they found that in a cave with whatever it was, also with the Zimbabweans, also finding that, core discovery or whatever of a piece of wood in a cave that was very old, and it was also looked like it was suspended on poles. So it could be the remnants of the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba, which disappeared, and the people don't seem to know what happened to it. I know what happened to it. My grandfather was the last person to hold the drum. And then he says the drum destroyed itself. He was a witness. So now what is this story now in Zimbabwe of someone finding it in a cave and taking it to the Harare Museum? And then another British man, another European man finds it also inside the museum in the dusty shelves. He's very sarcastic. He says, in the dusty shelves of the Harare Museum. He said he found it there and he discovered that this must have been the drum of the Lemba, which they say disappeared, and they don't know what happened to it. They don't know? Who told you that? The Lembas don't know what happened to the Ngoma Lungundu? No, they don't know. Okay, that's your story. This is not our story. So they took this little piece of wood because it says it has the features of the Ngoma Lungundu. So it is like now these Europeans are saying we are trying to theorize what this could have been. Why are they doing that? Did anyone ever say that they're confused about it? Did anyone ever say that? No. Why are they so concerned about trying to help these people, to help them rediscover their things? Did anyone ever say that we have problems with rediscovering the things that we lost? That we are looking for someone from Europe to come and say, okay, this is your drum. Oh, are you saying this is my drum? Okay, thank you. I'm so happy that you said it's my drum. So it is my drum. Oh, stupid things. So they begin to theorize that this is the Ark of the Covenant, as it is written in the Hebrew Bible, because of similarities. It is carried on poles. It does not have to touch the ground. It is used in battle to fight the enemy. So it's the same. So I am discovering it. To the prophet said, I have made a big discovery. He found it in the shelf. He didn't even take it from the cave at all. He found it in the shelves of the Harare Museum. The people of Harare Museum did not ever think that they have kept the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba in their museum at all, until came a man from Britain to say to the Harare Museum people, the piece of wood which you have kept inside your museum is actually the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba. Before the British man came to tell them so, they did not think it was so. So why isn't the Harare Museum saying to the people or to the Lemba, look, Lemba people, we have found the remnant of your drum and we have put it in our museum. Can we talk about what to do with it? Not a British researcher, anthropologist. Are there no anthropologists in Zimbabwe? Are there no educated people in Zimbabwe? And the people who are working at the Harare Museum are so educated and very intelligent. Why are they not telling the Lemba people, we have got your Ngoma here and we would like you to come and get it, please, because we do not want to keep it because it's not ours. We don't want to get into trouble with your sacred objects because they may create bad luck for us also, like they did with other groups that were trying to take it. So then the Lemba, agreed that this was the Ngoma drum. So now the story has changed. Okay, the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba has been found in a Harare museum by a British anthropologist, discovered inside the museum. It doesn't make sense, Something has already been put there, you are discovering it. Stupid things. So, then it's credit to this man. Oh, this man is going to probably talk about what the Lemba are going to do. Are they going to take it to Jerusalem or what? To build the third temple or what? So, all this is nonsense because the person who was last seen with the drum was my father, whose story has never been written, and I am writing it, and it's the memoirs. I'm writing the memoir so that I can blow to pieces this fabrication story of a Harare museum holding the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba, and that the Lemba are now negotiating with the government of that country if they can get their Ngoma or not. Rubbish. Nonsense. The Harare Museum is not holding the Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba. The Ngoma Lungundu of the Lemba is either with the king of the Lemba or with Ngwari. Two sources, not the museum. If the British or the Swedish missionary found that in the cave, and if it was the remnant of the Ngoma Lungundu, he cannot touch it. The Ngoma cannot be touched by a non-Lemba priest. He will die. Yes. Even if it's a remnant or an old piece, it will have effect and will kill the one who shouldn't touch it because they are not designated priesthood to touch it. It has regulations and it has powers. Our sacred objects have powers to defend themselves. Yeah. They are not taken by colonialists. If colonialists touch them, they die. Okay? Because I'm saying this because I hear that there was an Ashanti sacred object called the Golden Stool, and that the colonizers came. This is really a stupid story. The colonizers came to colonize the king and to capture the king, and wanting to take the Golden Stool because the people were venerating the Golden Stool because it was a sacred object for them, which is wonderful. But then the colonizers came and said, we want to take this thing that gives you the power to defend, so that you can be defenseless, so that we can take from you whatever we want. Now, since you have a weapon called the Golden Stool, it was not called the Golden Stool, of course. They gave the name Golden Stool themselves because they were very disrespectful of that sacred object. It was not called the Golden Stool. The British people decided to call it Golden Stool themselves, since they thought they could call it anything they wanted. Yes. And so now the Golden Stool they are trying to fight to protect the Golden Stool from being taken by the British colonizers. But now the British captured the king, who is supposed to be using the sacred object called the Golden Stool to protect himself from the enemies. The Golden Stool does not fight against the British so that they shouldn't touch it. So which means the British people can touch the Golden Stool and even take it unless somebody fights with them physically not to touch it. So that's why the Queen Mother fought against the British to defend the Golden Stool. So the Golden Stool is not defending itself. No. But it's supposed to be a sacred object with power. This is what I don't understand now. So after she had defended it, then she tried to defend that they can bring back the king home, the Nana. The Nana was trying to fight to bring back the king so that it could be the victory of the mother, which is wonderful. But my question is, 1, the Golden Stool is a sacred object and is very powerful, that the people even struggle just to have a look at it. Just to look at it will give them power and will give them so much blessing. The Golden Stool will be so powerful that if they wanted to destroy that nation of the Ashanti, they will be defeated. Because the Golden Stool is the sacred power and the magic power of that people. But now here comes the British colonizers. The Golden Stool is not powerful. It's not stopping the British from taking it. It's not stopping the British from capturing their king, until a woman, the Queen Mother, had to fight and risk her life. What kind of sacred object and magical power is this that doesn't defend the people? Yeah. Something isn't right. Maybe the Golden Stool was powerful, but maybe the regulations were not followed. And then the Golden Stool did not work. I don't know, but I'm so surprised that the so-called Africans or Ashanti people over there are crying that the British were so bad. They came to try to take our Golden Stool and we fought. Why isn't the Golden Stool paralyzing them like our Ngoma Lungundu does? If the British came to me and I had the Ngoma and they wanted to capture it because they think it gives me power so they cannot colonize me anymore, then I will say to them, okay, try. You can try to touch it. Because anyone who touched it, who was not a priest, who was not chosen to touch it, would die, even if he's a Lemba. Because these are the regulations. So if the British people or whoever is not a Lemba man or woman cannot touch the drum, Yeah. So now I'm hearing all over the internet and on Facebook and everywhere that the Africans are complaining that Europeans have taken their artifacts, they've taken their sacred objects. Why would they take them? Because the objects should be so powerful that if they try to take them, they will die. You see. So, my people, our Ngoma Lungundu is coming back. Now you know the grandson of the man who was last seen with the Ngoma Lungundu was Selamun, my great grandfather. And here is his grandson speaking. And all I'm going to do is to reassemble the drum again and use it like my father used to use it before it blew itself up. Thank you very much. We are looking forward to this development of reassembling the Ngoma drum so that we can have the power that we had before and we can have it back and defend our people and build our nation with a new king who is coming from the man who was last seen with the Ngoma Lungundu drum. Thank you. Salam salam. This is Binyam Selamun of Lemba Beta Esrael. Salam.